Thanks for your time, Kate. Probably firstly for you, just simply, how do you describe this new feature that's coming to Australians?
Sure, I'll start with maybe a very non-technical adjective, mind-blowing. But I think about it as this amazing intersection of two features, right? One is active noise cancellation, which is the ability to suppress sounds from the outside world, and then transparency, which is this really magical experience that allows the outside world to come in so that you can either experience your own personal soundtrack, let's say, of listening to music or other things, but balancing that with being able to hear the outside world. And then those two things come together to create these magical hearing features, which I think Rajiv can jump into the details of each of them.
For the hearing features altogether, we think of it as a first of its kind end-to-end experience with loud sound reduction, with the ability to understand your hearing ability with the hearing test, and then hearing assistance with the hearing aid feature. And so all within one device, one software package, you get all of these things.
I think people can pretty easily grasp the idea of trying to make it easier to hear the world around you, but then to take it to the next level and try and get medical certification, clinical grade approval for this feature. What makes you want to take it to that next level?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So for us, listening using our devices is always a key component of our customer experience. But really, when you're moving into personalization and optimizing the world around you, of course, communication, sound, this is how we interact with the world with our loved ones, really have to have that specific match to your personalized profile. And so the ability to import a hearing test or take a hearing test on the platform and then tune the AirPods settings to your specific needs is really quite important. And so after doing that, looking to see if it's technologically possible, how do you create the right type environment, the lowest latency possible to optimize hearing experience, using algorithms to optimize conversation and speech. How do you then show that to users? How do you then prove that to the world? And so we take quite significant steps for clinical validation. Not only our own internal studies during development or human factor studies for the experiences, but then going to look at the clinical validation, that scientific validation. It's quite a high bar, but we set it really to make these best products and features possible, and such that we can talk about them around the world and reach as many users as possible.
Is there a way, Kate, of quantifying the work that you had to go to, the level of effort required to take what is... Is there a way, Kate, of, I guess, quantifying the extent of that certification? Because we're talking here about a consumer product that's been on the market. It's a pre-existing product. This is essentially democratizing hearing health. People would assume that to get this level of hearing check and hearing health, hearing performance from a hearing aid, you would need to go to a professional.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And I would even say if we wanted to take a look at the first stake in the ground, which was AirPods Pro 1, we actually couldn't do that, right? That we knew between the processing that we needed on the AirPod as well as the microphones and the overall performance that generation of product wouldn't be able to do it. And we needed to advance the computation. We needed to get better microphones. We needed to be able to create these algorithms to do what Rajiv was saying, which is to be able to bring in this clinical data and create hearing tests and be able to match that device performance with what has to be best in class because of expectations of doing great things for our customers. So, it may be hard to sort of quantify for the average person, but I think in an iPhone and an AirPods, I think it's not too much to say you have this little supercomputer kind of running in your pocket and in your ears that many years ago would be unimaginable. And so we have always had sort of this aspirational idea that we wanted to do more for hearing health. But until all of these things came together, it was at that point in time, only a dream. And now it's become a reality, which is pretty amazing.
And look, I feel like I already know the answer based on what you've just said, but was it always the plan to make this something that was bedded into an existing product? I mean, we're not talking here about a feature that you need to now rush out and buy a brand new product to use. This is a pre-existing product that's in fact been on the market for nearly 2 years.
Sure. I think one of the things we have to think about is the journey to first get that product out the door is an immense journey. You know, we're trying to mature hardware and software, and then this regulatory environment that we have to prove that these features are at, you know, a world-class level, that sometimes those things don't coincide exactly, right? So we had to get the hardware out there, and we had these better components, and we were, let's say, maybe pretty sure that we could get there, but not on day one. But it doesn't stop us from wanting to achieve this amazing customer experience. And so we're really proud that we're able to do it in the hardware that existed, and we didn't have to tell people, oh, go buy the next one, but that they could use the product they had today.
Rajiv, you've probably encountered this because the feature's been made available in some other countries already, but I think to suggest to someone that you could get a medically certified hearing test on an existing Apple set of headphones, some people just simply wouldn't believe it. People would assume that you need to go to a medical professional. Is that a stumbling block to essentially the take-up of this technology?
Oh, it's a great question. I think for us, a key part of this journey stems back to the Apple hearing study, which kicked off in 2019, large public health study in collaboration with the University of Michigan and World Health Organization. And there we learned a tremendous amount. We learned lots of people have loud sound exposure greater than considered safe by the WHO. A lot of people have hearing loss and didn't know it. A lot of people had hearing loss and knew it, but never went on to do anything about it. And so along that spectrum of loud sound reduction, hearing assessment, the ability to assess your hearing at home, and the hearing test feature, the ability to aid your hearing if you have mild to moderate hearing loss, we found that there was a tremendous opportunity for technology to fill a gap, to fill a void. And so there, we designed lots of different iterations to say, how do we reach people? How do we show them this information about themselves? And at the end of the day, the simplest user experience that shows them a tremendous amount of information and makes it usable was our key aspect. We wanted to make that the most useful, unlock their data for them. But to your point, to make it believable, to take it to the next level if they need to, with regards to closing the loop with their care provider, we also include the traditional visualization about audiogram. We generate a PDF so that a user can share this information and continue the discussion if they so choose. We made research data elements such that researchers around the world could ask users for their data within consented health studies. And so we did all the due diligence for that scientific validation, but we focused on the user experience being very, very simple. And so to answer your question, we've not heard of lack of believability. We've heard really great feedback about people feeling empowered and knowing what to use with the data, how to use their data. But it's been a tremendous journey.
Just talk me through a couple of real-world situations, experiences where people would be experiencing real-world hearing loss, and how, I guess, this feature changes that for them, what the experience is like.
Yeah, I think the most noticeable thing, or something that's subtly lost over time that people might not be aware of until it's pretty significant, is conversation. It's speech, particularly when in noisy environments like restaurants or on public transportation or something along those lines. And so the ability to have your settings available on device, on the buds, whether you're near your iPhone or iPad or far away, but just being able to put them in whenever you want episodically, and maintaining a conversation and being able to navigate that environment has been really quite fulfilling. We receive letters every week talking about people recognizing things that weren't available to them before, being able to have these conversations and just engaging more with their family and loved ones.
Do you think, I'm reaching far past middle age, the big 50, and I feel like, and this may be just me, but I feel like there's a stigma associated with a hearing aid. And so do you think the idea that putting this, not just the test, but the solution for someone with a mild to moderate hearing loss into something as everyday as the Apple AirPod helps fight that stigma, helps people, in fact, accept potentially a level of hearing loss? And yeah, of course, they may at some point move towards a much more sophisticated solution as they get into older age. But in those early years of the start of hearing loss, do you think this helps for people that would see it as a stigma, or potentially just, again, democratizes the solution?
Yeah, no, it's a really important point. So in the Apple hearing study, 10% of participants had hearing loss and knew it. 75% of them never went on to use a hearing aid. And when you dig into reasons why, often comes back to cost, access, but certainly stigma is big for a lot of people. And so we thought about that in multiple different ways. So one, AirPod is quite ubiquitous when using it. One doesn't know specifically you're using it because you have hearing loss, or you're using it because you're listening to a great podcast or navigating your environment. So in that regard, we think it lowers that activation energy or that barrier for a lot of people. On the other hand, we don't see that type of stigma for, let's say, for example, glasses or contact lenses or these things. In fact, there's very cool brands and there's very cool ways of going about that. And we don't want to shy away from that or pretend or want people to think that hearing is something that should have stigma.
Right.
So we lean very much into calling this a hearing aid feature, making sure people knew exactly the software we're building and for what intent, and then pairing that with a lot of user education. And so the ability to talk to you and have open conversations about how common hearing loss is, how normal it can be to lose hearing with noise exposures or over time, and that there are multiple options to intervene, including AirPods, makes us very excited.
Well, I think just finally, and let's just keep it very simple here, for the average person, average mums and dads in Australia, can you describe the process of actually performing a hearing test, of enabling the hearing aid feature that exists now with your operating system and the AirPods Pro 2?
For sure. I think we go through a pretty, thankfully, straightforward, as Rajiv said, step-by-step process. But the first one is doing a fit test with your AirPods. And, in the AirPod box, we have 4 different ear tips, and making sure, first and foremost, that you have the size that is right for you to have both a comfortable fit and a great acoustic seal. That acoustic seal is the foundation from which you can onboard to the hearing test. But there is a passive isolation component, meaning just putting this thing in your ear, you will get some reduction from that when the fit is great. So when I explain it, to my mom, who's, I think, hopefully done the test now, but I said, make sure you get the right tip on the earpod or the AirPod and run the test. And so we say, get that done. Then the second one is to find a reasonably quiet room, because of course, as you go through the test, there's going to be very quiet sounds and you need to be able to hear them. So thankfully, right in the AirPods settings pane, it's right there, take hearing test. And so once you have those 2 things, get to a quiet room and then run the hearing test. And honestly, I haven't been doing this in a doctor's office for a long time, but I would say we've spent a lot of time on the user interface and the HI design to make it so that it's easy for people to do. And I've done it myself. It is very easy. It takes about 5 minutes. And then, as Rajiv said, you get to the end of it and you have a PDF. If you want to pursue just setting up your AirPods, easy to do. If you want to go see a hearing professional with that information afterwards, then you have that available to you. And so both of those paths are open. But the more that we do talk about this and explain to our families and friends how to do it, I think that the more folks we are going to see utilizing AirPods and this feature.
It really does feel like a lot of the other health features that Apple's introduced, whether it's on the watch or now here in the AirPods, it's making mainstream access to health information, something that people may not have seen before or may not have been willing to go and seek out. And that's a pretty important part of this, and it's, I guess, a really fulfilling part of this too.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for your time.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for the questions.